what we're doing is implementing that employee one, and I'm going to add not so much a setter method, but another method to fix the salary once I kind of do that. All right, so here's how we create one. Again, here are the ones we've created before. I right-click on a package, and it comes up and doesn't do anything. I right-click on a package, and I say New Java Class. And I call it Employee. And then notice here, see, this is where it's creating the file. This directory is the root. The root of my source, or this SRC, again, that's a NetBeans convention, but notice under that I have a folder called CS2173, and then employee.java is going to go in that. And that gets created for me automatically. Okay, so again, the first declaration in any class is the name of the package it's in. And then Java has created the declaration public class employee. Now I have these three instance variables I need to declare. So here's how I do that. I say private string name. That's the first one. What was the second? Private double salary. And the third is private local date. This local date is, and that's, this is the higher day. Was it the higher day or higher date? Doesn't matter. Private. Now, notice I have the red squiggly. It's complaining. I hover on it. What does it say? It says, I cannot find the symbol local date. Why can't it find the symbol? Because it's in some other package somewhere. Or maybe it doesn't exist. And so, remember, we kind of look to the left and we see a little light bulb that has an idea along with a little red thing that says, hey, there's something wrong. And so when I click on that, I have three choices. I can either add the import from Java time local date, or I can create a class here, or I can create a local class. Again, in this case, in almost every case, I want to import. And remember what import does and doesn't do. Import doesn't import anything. All import does is say, I can use the name of this class in an unqualified way. That's all it does. Okay, so now red squigglies are gone. Now the next step is to create the constructor. Now in this case, I'm going to okay, so I discovered something. Okay, this is this is something that, well, this happens to me a lot. Namely, I've fat-fingered the name of something. And you all are still asleep, so you didn't pick it up, but yeah. Okay, no, I wanted to call this class employee, but I actually called it employee. Okay, now NetBeans rides to the rescue here. See, now it's complaining. It's saying, oh, it thinks that I've been trying to declare a method, but if this is a method, I've left something out. I left the return type out, if that's a method. You know, why does it think it's a method? Because the name does not match, employee does not match employee. Okay, now, Java rides to the rescue here. And this is something that will happen to you. That's for something. And Java has this great, NetBeans has this great feature called refactor. So this is an opportunity for me to show you that. So okay, here's something I've misnamed this, and I want to rename it. But remember, if I rename the class, I also have to rename the file. And if I've used this anywhere else, then I need to rename it there. So that's a lot of pieces to try to stick together. But if I right-click on it, and I choose Refactor, Rename, I can now rename it from employee to employee, the way I want. And what it does is it changes it everywhere that was used, including the name of the file. Notice the name of the file is now employee.java. And now my constructor is not complaining because it now matches the name. So this refactor is a very powerful thing. We're going to see another example of it in just a second. Now in this case, in this particular case, we're not going to allow the salary to change here. And again, time permitting, next time we address this, there's another method to kind of give you a raise. We're not going to give, but okay, so here's the constructor. In the constructor, we need to initialize all of our variables. In this case, we're going to initialize them with what's been passed in. And here's how we do that. This name is equal to name. This salary is equal to salary. And this hire date is equal to the one that's passed in. Now, doing this for a primitive like salary is not a problem. Doing this for object references like the name, which is a string, which is an object, and local date, the hire date is also an object. We need to be careful that we have not broken encapsulation. In other words, if we pass in this name, whoever has instantiated this, they've created this name variable and passed it in. If they change that, is it going to change what we have here? And the answer is no, because remember we said strings are immutable. So if they've instantiated a string object and passed it into us, then it cannot be changed. And it turns out that local date is also immutable as well. That is, if somebody changes that, then they, again, it turns out that that's the case. However, if we want belt and suspenders, we can actually, let's see, is it from? From, yeah. If we want to be doubly sure, then again, it turns out that this local date has a class method called from, and if I give it another local date, it will create a copy and give it back to me. That isn't totally necessary, but if you want to feel a little more comfortable about it, then you can. Okay, so now the last ones, at least in my design, where we can't change the salary, we need our getter methods. You say, well, okay, we need to type them, but setters and getters, again, refactor has a very powerful thing in this. So if I select, I'll select my variables, and if I right-click and I say refactor again, but I go all the way almost to the bottom, and there's a selection called encapsulate fields. And if I select that, then it will bring up the fields. I can select the ones I want. And in this case, it's selected both getters and setters, but I don't want setters. I don't want to be able to change them. So I want to unselect everybody, but I can select the getters. And now this will write the getter methods for me. Now the default value, where they put it by default is kind of an ugly place. So instead I want to put it after the constructor. And we just want to kind of inside default. The field's visibility is private, but the accessor's visibility is public. And if I hit refactor, then what it has done is it has written the getter here, the getter for salary, and the getter for local date. And again, if I'm unsure about whether local date is immutable or not, here I would need to, again, I don't need to, as it turns out, but if I want to be absolutely safe, because I'm not sure, local date. I'm sure it's immutable, so this isn't completely necessary, but if I were unsure as to whether it was immutable, then I could use this, which again, this is like a clone. It creates a copy of what this is. And this is just to be maybe doubly safe, just in case somehow a mutable version of that comes up. Okay, so that is that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, at least once the bell rings, I'm going to commit this and push this up to my Git repository, and here's how you can pull it down. You have already cloned it, but once I push it, it's not going to automatically update yours. You're going to have to do that. So what you do is you right-click on my project, just as you would do with yours, and you would say Git remote pull, and then you want to make sure that you selected mine and not yours, otherwise you'll pull yours, which would kind of muck things up. And then the next, it will say master to origin master, and then that will, once I push mine, when you do that, it will pull it down, pull my changes down to yours. Again, I have not done that yet, but once I do, you can do that. Okay, so again, first thing tomorrow is going to be another exciting